Hi there. We are so glad you joined us today for this message. We hope you enjoy it. Kick back, learn about Jesus, and be blessed. Talk to you soon.
God bless y'all and welcome. As you can probably tell already, we want y'all to feel comfortable, and we'll only push you when it counts. We go to great lengths to try to bring people in and make them feel comfortable, even as far as going and buying brand new cars. So I had to throw that in. She didn't hear me. So as we get started here, we call it the ranch family. And so it is a big family. In that, people have pains, and we help and pray for one another, and we do things to try to make each other's lives more bearable here in this world. It's trying to seem like it wants to kill every one of us. And so in that, know that when these people are talking and they're welcoming you, it's genuine. It's from their hearts. And you can test them on it too. What we're talking about today is rejection and unbelief. And I don't hear a lot of that in here this morning. So that's exciting. But we see a lot of that in the world. We're going to look at some of that today. There was a pastor, and the church needed a new piano. And so he said, we're going to take up an offering for a new piano. And they had gone ahead and purchased it, and it was setting up. And he said, go ahead and pass the plate, and whoever puts in the most money gets to pick 3 hymns to be sung today. And so they passed the plate, and he was watching everybody reaching and everything, and they brought it up, and he saw a $100 bill in there, and he thought everything in there was smaller than that. He said, all right, whoever put the $100 bill in wins. Come on up here and pick 3 hymns. And the 80-year-old lady walked up, and she made her way up there and got up, and he said, okay, pick 3 hymns. And she turned around and went, I'll take him and him and him. She gets Billy. So God is awesome. And He loves us, and sometimes we don't see how much. But these testimonies just challenge us to look at all the different things in our lives. We are finishing up Matthew chapter 13, and we're going to be in verse 53 to 58 of Matthew. And we've learned a lot in the past month or so in Matthew 13. We've learned the whole year and last year a lot from what Matthew's told us. But here we get to a point where it kind of can be a little confusing. And so we're going to go over this and see what the Lord can bring out of it. I'm going to go ahead and read, starting with verse 53. It says, when Jesus had finished these parables, he moved on from there. Coming to his hometown, he began to teach the people in their synagogue. And they were amazed. Where did this man get the wisdom and these miraculous powers, they asked. Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother named Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas? Aren't all his sisters with us? Where then did this man get all these things? And they took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his own town and his own home. And he did not do many miracles because of their lack of faith. We're going to let us pray. Lord, we just thank you for your word, and we just thank you for this place and this family that you've given us, these treasures, these people. Lord, we just ask that you would allow us to be good stewards of not only your word, but the people that you put in our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. So as we look back in Matthew 13, I want to look back to verse 15. And in verse 15, Jesus was telling about the parable of the sower. In this verse, he's explaining what's going on. And he said, for this people's hearts have become calloused. They hardly hear with their ears, and they close their eyes. Otherwise, they might see with their eyes and hear with their ears, understand with their hearts, and turn, and I will heal them. So we understand that these people that he's talking to are not only Pharisees, but other people around who just aren't ready. And they have hard hearts. So when we come into these verses, we have to keep that in mind, that this is where these parables are being taught. In verse 53, it says, when Jesus had finished these parables, he moved on from there. Coming to his hometown, he began teaching the people in their synagogue. In their synagogue. Not his, right? And we talked about, here's a man, Jesus, who knows everything. He knows he doesn't need to go to church. He knows everything. He is everything. But still, he finds time to go to church. He finds a way to go to church. He's not disrupting the church. He's just trying to tell the truth, his Father's truth, in a place where there's so many laws that you get lost in the laws and don't see the truth. As we learned in the Beatitudes in chapter 5 and 6 of Matthew, it's about the heart is what he wants. He's trying to show all of us as we read this message that he's given us that it's in our hearts. It's not in our outward appearances or what we do. So you got to realize that as he's coming into his hometown, he's going in the synagogue and he's teaching, and they were amazed and said, where did this man get this wisdom and these miraculous powers? Now they've seen so many things. They've seen the man with a crippled hand healed. Then right after that, they said, oh, give us a sign. Oh, what did I just do? You know? So they're always asking for more, always challenging him, trying to trip him up. And that's what happens in our lives. We can get to a place where we're so excited and we're so full of God after a time of testimony like that. And we can go out there and gut punch and just be empty. Emptied out in a second. Whatever it may be. And this is encouraging because Jesus went through that too. Not that he was emptied out, but he went through people, not understanding who he was, what he was saying. What are you all about? Why do you do the things you do? I've had those times in my life, and I know many of you have. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 28 and 29, we see here, when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowd was amazed at his teaching because he taught as one with authority and not as their teachers of the law. He taught with a power that was from above and not a power that was from the law. And so they recognized his authority. How soon they lost it. There's so many things in our lives where I've had times where people have seen me, and pastors have said to me when I was in their churches or in their midst, Oh, that's just Greg. You know, that's just him. Yeah. You laugh. You were part of it. So, you know, and I have to think, you know, well, that's the way God showed it to me. That's how He told me. And sometimes it doesn't come out. I have a problem that this thing here is slow. It's real slow. So sometimes it's so slow that the entire thought didn't come all the way out before I move on to the next thing. And that's being trained by my wife. She thinks like this, and the answers have to come right after the question. Mine are sometime an hour later, 30 minutes later. If you see me out of this realm here, I don't really say a whole lot most of the time. Unless we're talking about fishing or something. Or you get started on Jesus and then I can't stop again. But normal, everyday, all the time stuff, I don't have a lot to say. That's why I have a wife. That's really funny. It is, because she says it all. She says it all, and we won't go there about what was it we were talking about on Thursday? You guys, I think you guys agreed that you know. They know it all. And that's good. That's good. I mean, heck, unless you know it all, you could have never been a teenager. You can't skip that, right? I mean, there's times you know it all. So in verse 55 of Matthew 13, it says, "Isn't this the carpenter's son? Isn't his mother named Mary? And aren't his brothers James, Joseph, Simon, and Judas?" And here's something that we do, and the council culture will do it. They'll find a reason why you're not that profound, why I don't need to listen to you. One of the funny things that's happened lately is somebody said, I was at a men's deal with a bunch of other men, and it wasn't a cowboy church, and I had a cowboy hat on, sorry. And that would be hard. Anyways, had a cowboy hat on, and somebody made mention, so what do you got horses? You rope? You ride? No, I quit all that when I was young. I got an artificial knee over here and stuff that don't work that good anymore, and I hadn't been on a horse in years, and I don't know that I probably will ever again in my life. And they said, well, what are you wearing a hat for? Yeah. And I said, well, you play baseball? He said, no. What are you wearing a baseball cap for? Yeah. And one of the other guys standing there had his baseball cap sideways. I said, sir? You ever seen where the guy's going like this and his baseball cap's backwards? But that, well, yeah. They might come here just to antagonize. And that's okay too, because we need some of that. I get that. I get that on the internet. So they're saying we know his family, we know his brothers, we know his mom, and they also say that here's the deal. You can just add this in. This is ad-libbing. This is a Gregism, but they're saying, isn't his mom? See, they didn't say anything about his dad, so they're thinking, well, those are his brothers, right? And that's his mom. I don't even know if that's his real dad, because he don't look anything like his brothers. Well, his father's God, right? And we see the pictures of him, and he's like, it's like a model, with the flowing hair but he really didn't look that way. He didn't really look that way. That's just Growing up Catholic, that's what I learned. That's who Jesus was. So you see guys walking around with their hair long and a beard, and you're like, hey, you look like Jesus. No, you probably don't. No, you probably don't. You probably go find a homeless guy and then go, hey, you look like Jesus. And that's probably more like it. He walked everywhere. Y'all know that? He slept outside. So we tend to look at things and judge people, and this is what's happening. They're going, how can he come? How can he be who this man? Where did all this come from? So right away, they're taking one. They're going, we're trained at this. We know how to do this. We know the law. We know how to teach people to keep the law. Where'd this guy get all this stuff from? We know his family. We know where he's from. So in John, chapter 6, verse 41 through 44, at this, the Jews began to grumble about him because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. Okay. Now, in this day and age, this is written here. How many of you would go out and go, well, the Jews, because in this day, you don't say that. You don't say the Jews. You don't even know from day to day if you can say blacks. And I know my daughter will jump right in my face if I say those people. Implying the Jews, those people. What do you mean, those people? Well, the ones that live over there. As a dad, you don't know how to react to that. Or I don't anyway. They said, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? Live right here. We've seen them. Saw how their family grew up. How can he say, I came down from heaven? So we saw him as a baby. We saw this family grow up, and now he's going to say he came down from heaven. How can that be, right? Right? Like my mom and dad. When the Lord told me, on the same day he told my wife, wonderful day, he said, come and work for me. And man, everything I did that day, I had hydraulic fluid all over me. I was changing filters on a road grader. Every nut and bolt just twisted right. I didn't break a knuckle, nothing. And it was just like a sweet smell. And the cedar bushes were all letting off the pollen. You ever see that? When they just explode? That was all over. But I just smelled a beautiful smell. And I was like, Lord, I'm going to be the best employee for you, and I'm going to work for you, and all this and that. And I drove home. There was a herd of elk on the side of the road, and antelope running over here, and I was just so, thank you, Lord. I'm seeing all this is great. I get home, and I said, look, listen to what the Lord said. She said, no, wait, me first. He said, he told me to sell everything and go to work for him. So I get home. She says, no, he told me, give everything away and we'll go work for him. And I was like, yes. I didn't even have to say what I said because she already knew. He told us both at the same day, probably at the same time. And it was just, we're like, okay, I don't know how it's going to work. So everybody gave us advice. Do this, do that. Write a list, what you need. This is what I need, Lord, to do that. And all those things that we wrote down happened. Wonderful, miraculous things, right? So here's my parents that know me from everything, right? And we're telling them we're gonna get rid of everything and go work for the Lord. They're like, what? That woman has made him crazy. We had property, we had vehicles, I had play stuff, boat, dating myself, 3-wheelers. all kinds of stuff. It's all got to go. And within a matter of time, people were going, what are you doing? And the one guy that said something is Charles Huckabee. He said, well, you guys are young enough, you can get everything back. And I was thinking to myself, I just can't wait to get rid of it and see what this is, you know. So nobody really understood, but they all knew me. This ridiculous man who says off-the-wall stuff we don't understand all the time. And how is this going to work? I want to stick around to see how this ends up. And it's been a beautiful thing. But in that place, all these people who knew us saw me at my worst. Still couldn't imagine seeing me at my best. Didn't even know what that looked like. And same with my wife and her family. They're puzzled. What? Everybody in town quit drinking the water. Something's wrong with them. So we followed God. Same type deal looking at here. All these people have known where he came from and who he was, and now he's going to say this. He says, stop grumbling among yourselves, Jesus answered. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws them. And I will raise them up in the last day. And that's a glorious promise for each one of us. But know this, we can't come to him unless the Father sends us. Who does that? The Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit works in your heart. And he gets you wanting. Sometimes he has to take you to a place where you need only thing that can fix is him. And then you walk down out after. Sometimes it's all the way down to the very bottom. And the thing that is intriguing to me is when you look at somebody who is a spiritual person, we tend to think, they're not spiritual at all. They're normal. They're just a regular, normal person. How can they be spiritual? Because we think, oh, wow, that's somebody who's floating like this, and they're doing this, and there's miracles following them. It's not. That's not the way it is. If the person next to you, in the row next to you, or around you starts speaking in tongues and praying, you think, are they more spiritual? Well, just move. I always tell my kids, if you want everybody to leave you alone, start speaking in tongues. Man, they'll scatter. They'll run. So we don't know, but we think, well, maybe that's it. No, that's weird. It can't be. It's normalcy. It's somebody who's not panicking because, oh, well, they said this, and I've got to, that's it. I'm done. I'm writing you off. How many of you have people in your family that when you offend them, they go, you're done? Or animals. That's the last time that puppy's peeing on the carpet. And you didn't know that when you were going to get it, it was going to do that? I mean, that's like supposed to happen. That's part of the deal. But as a human, we can write things off. We can write people off. Just that's it. You're done. Same type of deal what they're doing. It's a hard heart. You know, we can just shine them off. But that's not the ministry that Jesus had, and that's not the ministry that he's given us. And then there was this gentleman who said, oh, the carpenter's son. Isn't he the carpenter's son? Joseph? So what's he doing now? He's making coffins for everybody? That's terrible. He's making coffins for everybody? All of his enemies? No, that's not part of the ministry either. That's not the thought. So he's a normal guy. And we look at verse 56. It says, aren't these his sisters among us? Or aren't all of his sisters with us? So we understand he had brothers and same mom, steps, but there was more of them. In this statement, the Pharisees that are speaking here are saying, aren't his sisters all with us? In agreement. In agreement. With us physically. With us in agreement. Aren't they on our side? But this guy is just a guy making up stories out there doing this crazy thing. Well, we find that in Luke chapter 4, verse 16-24. He went to Nazarene, where he'd been brought up. And on the Sabbath day, he went into the synagogue, as it was custom, and he stood and he read the scroll. Oh, this is a different scripture than what I was talking about, but this is that he was accustomed to, and he stood and he read the scroll, and it was the prophet of Isaiah was handed to him. He unrolled it and found a place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim the good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim freedom to the prisoners and recovery for the sight of the blind, to set the oppressed free, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor." And then he rolled up the scroll, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down. And the eyes of everyone in the synagogue was fastened on him. He began by saying, "Today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." And all spoke well of him, and all that spoke well of him were amazed at the gracious words that came from his lips. "Isn't that Joseph's son?" they asked. In this, we see that all of the eyes were fastened on him. Everyone was focused on him, and the ones that spoke well of him were amazed. The other ones, well, they weren't too happy. Because once again, he just picked his own spot to read, and it just happened to be prophetic about him at that time. And we get caught up sometimes in words, fastened. Do you know that word in our language can be used many ways? In the Greek, it's incredible if you ever look up the word fast. I did that in looking at cars, and I was looking fast, and then I thought about that word, because your boat can be fast to the dock. Your kid can get new shoes and think he's fast. You can use it in all different ways. And so sometimes you have to research this stuff out pretty far, and I get stuck on a lot of words. The scroll, when he looks it up, he unrolls it, and it's big. I mean, they didn't have a Bible like we did. It's a big scroll. So he looked for the passage he wanted to read on purpose for this day. And they grumbled. They didn't like it. He just said that he is God incarnate. He has been sent to save. And he repeats this again to John's disciples. And he uses it a couple of different times in the Bible, this passage out of Isaiah. And we learn that his ministry is with loving people, caring for people, healing people. And everything that goes against him is not. The exact opposite. But in the world, we see it as the same. We see things that we think are good. I had an argument with a young man online, you all know what trollers are, right? And it was something about the Super Bowl, and it was a comment I made, and he made a comment back, and there was people saying, "Oh, I tried to watch it, but it just wasn't my thing," and like, back and forth comments. And a young man said a comment, and I made a comment back to that, and I said, I said, well, if we just would go back to writing in cursive and using stick shifts, we'd eliminate a whole generation. And he said, well, if we just went to email and self-checkout, we'd eliminate your generation. And I said, young man, who do you think invented that stuff? We did, to make it easier on our kids. But we just made a bunch of brats. And then he came back and said, well, and that makes it your fault, doesn't it? And I said, yes. So be careful what you say and what you do and what you think. Because things that you think and say right now may be good. But everyone, as they grow up, changes their mind. And they erased me off their thing. Can't talk to that guy. Yeah, can't talk to that guy anymore. I'm not even dumb enough to fight. In Mark chapter 3, verse 20 through 22, when Jesus entered a house, and again, a crowd gathered, so he and his disciples had not even been able to eat. His family heard about this, and they went to take charge of him. He doesn't know what he's doing out there. We got to go take charge of him. For they said, he is out of his mind. He is out of his mind. How many of you say, I am just beside myself? That sounds better, right? It means the same thing, but it sounds better. Beside yourself is out of your mind. We don't say, oh, I'm just out of my mind today. Because once you get out of your mind, can you get back? So anyways, this family thinks he's crazy. Man, he's crazy. We got to go fix him. Like my family. What's going on? My parents came really fast. They came really fast. I said, we're going to sell everything. And that's when I figured out. I said sell, or I heard sell. She heard give. That's the difference between the two of us. But she heard give. She went to church. I got to say the rest of this. She went to church and got up in front of everyone and said, can I give a testimony about something? And then she told the whole story I told and said, so if there's anything that you guys want, come on over to the house afterwards. And there was actually trucks within a half hour backing up to the house. And when all this happened and got done, we actually had mats we were sleeping on in the house because there was nothing else left. I mean, people were loading up. She was like giving it away. My garage and my shop was like, nope, I'm selling that stuff. So anyways, when my parents came to help, I said, we're going to have a garage sale. You can help with that. What? No, really. We're going to sell everything. Out of his mind, and the teachers of the law who came down from Jerusalem said, he is possessed by Beelzebub, by the prince of demons. He is driving out demons. So to the extent of now they are saying he's not only crazy, what his family believes, but he's also possessed by the devil. And the devil's making him do this. I mean, that's tough to say to the Son of God. And even his own family doesn't see the things that he's doing. It's amazing to me. The sisters are with us. They agree. They come and say he's crazy. And in verse 57, and they took offense at him. They took offense at him. But Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor except in his own town and his own home. Now, I'm just going to say to you men out there, when you have not led your family for God and you decide to, there will be resistance. There will be resistance. Because that's not something that's used to getting. Whenever she's done all the work in that manner, and then I come in and go, man, I'm going to do this now. You can take a chair. Just take a chair. Nobody wants, nobody wants to sit down after they've been doing something and they've got it figured out and it's all lined out. They don't want to sit back and let somebody else take over, even a husband. And you can come on hard times walking into that. But know that suffering for the Lord is a beautiful thing. I made that comparison because that's one that I went through. I was just a guy out there making a living, making money. That's it. And then all of a sudden the Lord woke me up and said, now you've fallen asleep. Don't fall asleep again, boy. And I had to take the reins back. And it was a fight. It was a fight. I still have not won. 26 years. But it's a fight, and we have to fight. For the prophet has no honor in his home and in his hometown. And why is that? That's because of what you've seen. I had to come from Phoenix, Arizona to here. How many of you have moved to get away from your crap? But how many of you have moved thousands of miles to get away from your crap? Yeah. And that's okay. Jesus had to move. We're called to move. Because we can get stuck in places where people are coming against us because they have the dirt. We have political positions where people are stuck in because somebody's got something on them. They make the same decisions. I'm speaking for the people. No, you're speaking for your pocket. How can you take an office and be GoFundMe page for an apartment, and a year later you're $2 million or a multi-millionaire? How does that work? Are we all in the wrong business? No. We're in the Jesus business. The retirement's good. The pay's not that great, but the retirement's good. So I want to bring this out in John chapter 6, verse 55 through 58. It's for my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. That's an overwhelming statement to a lot of people. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in them. You could see that. You could see that. You can understand that. It's pretty, there's people out there that eat monkey brains because it makes them smarter. I think that's stupid, but they say if you have a liver disease and you eat a lot of liver, it helps your liver. I don't know. I can't stand liver. You can put all the ketchup in the world on it, it ain't no good. Just as the living Father sent me, I live because of the Father. So the one who feeds on me will live because of me. That's a beautiful picture. The first part grosses you out. but I live because of the Father. If you feed on me, which is this and this, then you'll live by me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your ancestors ate manna and died. But whosoever feeds on this bread will live forever. It's a promise to us. It's a promise to us. And at this point, the disciples are getting a little bit, what's he saying? Is he getting crazy? Was his family right? So I want to jump down to verse 60 in John chapter 6. It says, on hearing it, many of the disciples said, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? How many times have you heard something that was hard and wondered if I can really accept that or not? You know, it's what they're dealing with right there. Aware that his disciples were grumbling about this, Jesus said to them, does this offend you? Now, I know I've said that. I hope not to offend anyone. And some people are like, you always say that. I hope not to offend anyone. Then you say something to offend everyone. Why do you do that? It's my precursor. So he says, does this offend you? Then what if you see the Son of Man ascend to where he was before? To heaven. The Spirit gives life, and the flesh counts for nothing. The words I have spoken to you, they are full of the Spirit and life. Yet there are some of you who don't or do not believe, for Jesus had known from the beginning which of them did not believe and who would betray him. He went on saying, this is why I told you that no one can come to the Father, to come to me unless the Father enables him to. And this is weird. I think this is really here for a reason. This is John chapter 6, verse 66. It says, at this time, many of the disciples turned back and no longer would follow him. 666. John 666. They walked away from him and wouldn't follow him anymore because something in them, some kind of spirit, some kind of doubt, some kind of thing that was in them went, man, I can't eat this guy's flesh and drink his blood. Literally, thinking can get us that way. We can get twisted around things. Paul says that when you come to the Lord, should you just quit sinning? Or should you continue sinning? Surely not. But some people look at that and go, and some translations look at that and go, well, instead of surely not, should you continue sinning? Surely not. It'll say, for a little while. It kind of makes it plain where it's not such a serious offense. You know, you can, but it's okay. No, it's surely not. Cut and dry. In this case, he's telling them, this is a parable of some sorts about communion. We had communion on Wednesday, and they didn't get it. We are going to get it, right? We understand it today, right? We're not going to eat his flesh. We're not going to drink his blood. But we are going to take communion in representing of what he did to us with wine and bread. And then in 53 or 58, it says, and he did not do many miracles because of their lack of faith. I want to ask you a question. Does unbelief limit God? Does it stop him? No, it doesn't. So why did Jesus not do many things? Because of their unbelief, his hometown, the people that knew him, that he grew up around. Because of the unbelief, he limited the things, the miracles that he did. Matthew chapter 7, verse 6 says, "Do not give dogs what is sacred, and do not throw your pearls to pigs, for if you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces." There's a lot of wisdom in that, a whole lot of wisdom in that, because sometimes people will test you to find out what you know, but they don't care what you know, and they're not going to change their mind. They're testing you so they can tear you down. They're testing you so they can attack you. And he tells us, don't do that. So in this case, no. Unbelief, God can overcome everything. Unbelief is a room full of darkness. Only he can bring light into that. Now they were rejecting Jesus, and they have unbelief towards him. So that limits what he's going to do in that place. And I want to tell you today, we don't want to limit what God can do in our hearts by having unbelief. We want it out. We want rid of it. Clean the closet. So we find out that because they're rebuking him, rejecting him because they don't think he has the training. They know his mother. His brothers think he's crazy. His sisters probably, they were just thinking he's an ordinary guy. Like, why is he doing this stuff? And let me tell you today, there is no limits on God. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 1 says, "For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands." I say a lot of times this flesh craves things, as you can see by my one pack. This flesh craves things, and we feed it, and it's hard not to sometimes. It's hard to get around those things. And Jesus already knew that. He dealt with that and overcame that too. As we go through here, we're going to skip down to verse 11 and 18. Since then, we know what it is to fear the Lord. We try to persuade others. Do you guys know what it is to fear the Lord? It's the same situation. It's a relationship. It's the same situation when we're sitting at the car dealership, and the man we're talking to about a car says, "Okay," looks right at me, says, "What would you like?" And I say, "I want the new one." She didn't say anything, so he's looking up the new one. "Okay, well, let me see what I got. Let's see, that's a new one here. And she's just going, "No." And then he says, "Okay, well, here's the new one." She goes, "No, oh, no." "Well, then what would you want?" I probably should have asked that first. What do you want? I already knew that she wasn't going to ever buy a new one because I know her. I've been with her a long time. She's bought 2 new cars in our life, and a lot of cars. I've had a problem since I was young. when the ashtray filled up, it's time for a new one. And that was the way I dealt with it. And then I quit smoking, and now, yeah, I clean the trash out of them now, though. They fill up, and I'll empty them and fill them again. So sometimes it's having a relationship where we know what the other person, God, is wanting. I knew that I was going to get it for saying that and wasting that time. But I thought it was funny, and it wasn't. I still got supper, though. So we persuade others. What we are is plain to God. We're plain to God. Ordinary people. And I hope it's also plain to your conscience. We are not trying to commend ourselves to you again, but are giving you an opportunity to take pride in us. Now, what does that mean, take pride in us? To come and be part of us, to boast of the things we're telling you, to go and repeat them again. We're giving you an opportunity for that, so that you can answer those who take pride in what they see rather than what is in the heart, so that they can. Situation that we're in, you know, when people looked at me and when they see me now and they see me then, there's people, friends of mine that I went to high school with, that post pictures and just like, remember that party, that time that we had? And boy, you've changed. Well, that's good. I'm glad for that. Now I can speak into their lives. And they call me when they have needs. And they are starting to take pride in seeing what's inside of someone's heart rather than remembering where they came from. If you are out of your mind, as some say, it's for God. If we are out of our mind, sometimes it's for God. Some of you think that I'm out of my mind all the time. And others know it. If we are in our right mind, it's for you. If we're in our right mind, it's for you. Now, why does that mean? Because you think I'm right, so now I'm pleasing you rather than pleasing God. For Christ's love compels us because we are convinced that the one who died for all, therefore all die. And he died for all, that those who live should no longer live for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. So from now on, we regard no one from a worldly point of view, though we once regarded Christ in that way. We do so no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, there a new creation has come, and the old is gone, and the new is here. And all this is from God, who reconciled us through Christ and gave us the ministry of reconciliation. So as we started this year, we talked about we wanted to become gatherers and not scatterers. And as we continue to grow together as a family, we collect more. It says in the beginning church in Acts that they would grow by the thousands. I would love to see that again. And that's happening. That is happening. Not particularly in this place, but when you talk about the family of God, it's growing. We could see it here, but that number is multiplied when you look out. So let me tell you today that if you agree with the things I said, that's not accepting the things I said. Just agreeing. And if people don't react and they don't choose the Lord, they reject God, or they reject what He's trying to do in their lives, or they turn away from Him, as those that learned about Him being the bread from heaven. Because they didn't understand that, many disciples turned away and wouldn't follow Him anymore. Do you know they lost? How many of you like to be called a loser? Man, I hate that. I don't want to be a loser. But God sent His Son to die on a cross. And He was buried in a tomb, and He rose again to collect us for our sake, so that we could reconcile people back to Him. That veil was torn. Now we can talk to Him like He's our Father. And He'll treat us like we're His sons and daughters. Sometimes we'll need to be punished. Sometimes it's going to be tough. But in the end, it's going to be glorious. Can you imagine what heaven is like? I know it says that the angels cry in glory when one heart is saved. Can you imagine when we all reunite? Everybody runs their race, and their races end at different times. But what a glorious finish line it is. If anyone needs to give their life to the Lord, we can do that. If you don't know Jesus, if anyone has anything that they would like to give up to Him, you can come and kneel. We have people that will pray with you, men and women here, that you can come forward and they'll do that. Would you guys come up here? 4 of you. The 4 of yous. And don't leave today here with anything on your heart that needs to give to that you need to give to the Lord. The only thing that's required of us is to believe and then move. The only thing that you have to do to go to heaven is nothing, or to go to hell is nothing. But heaven requires that you believe and move. We thank you, Father, for this day. We thank you for your word, your letter to us, Lord. We thank you for the hearts that receive you. We thank you that you would open our eyes to the little things that you do that we overlook. And that we take a moment and pause and give glory to you. Let our hearts be always full of thanksgiving. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you were blessed. If you have any questions, please give us a call, 682-327-7082. We are at 7955 Reed Road in Azle, Texas. Y'all have a good day now, you hear?